Thank you so much for coming today, or tonight even. This is a voice masterclass with a difference. And I'm going to get you thinking about your voice, hopefully in a whole new way tonight. You're going to probably hear things, I hope that, well, maybe not hope, but you've never heard about your voice before. And I'm going to address as much as I can in 30 minutes. Thank you to all of those of you who emailed me back. As I said at the start, I only got some of the names because I think some of you might have registered later. So basically, I sent an email just to ask you a couple of questions about your voice, but I will share my email address at the end if anyone would like to email me. For those of you who have emailed me, feel free to send me a message if you have any more questions. Also, for those of you here tonight, you also will get free access to my online course, which I'll send to you probably tomorrow, which is called Free Your Mind, Free Your Voice. And it will all make sense, I hope, after tonight's call. So I am going to focus tonight on the common themes that came through in the emails that I got back. Because what was really interesting to me was there really was some very definite struggles, concerns people had with their voice across the board. So that's what I'm going to focus on. Just very quickly, before I get started, I'm just going to quickly introduce myself because I know there's a few people I haven't met before. So my name is Anouska Taylor. I'm a voice coach and I've been studying voice for over 15 years. And I say this because this will make sense also with what I'm going to be talking about tonight. I come from a very technical background with the voice, vocal science, vocal health, vocal function. And so that has been a lot of my work for the first probably 8 years of my training. And then in the last sort of 8 years, my focus has been on voice psychology, which is what I want to talk about tonight. And I've been studying Jungian psychology, the work of Swiss psycho-analyst Carl Jung. And that is what I now combine with the voice technical work. So I combine the psychology with the sort of vocal technique. And the combination of these two, and I'm also a singer-songwriter as well, by the way, I'm a performer as well. So the combination of these two has really transformed my voice. So what I'm going to share with you tonight has really helped me as a performer, as a singer, and also in my work, speaking in my everyday life, speaking to you tonight as well. So as Andrea sort of mentioned at the start, if you have any questions, either sort of make a note of them, and I will periodically just ask if anyone's got any questions, or you can just post them in the chat as well, and I will try and get to them. Okay, so let's start then, because we've only got 30 minutes. So essentially, what I want to talk about tonight is that your voice doesn't lie. It's really the symptom. Your vocal habits are really the symptom, not the cause of something much deeper that's going on within you at an unconscious level. Now, in mainstream psychology, mainstream sort of social media, we hear about the subconscious. Tonight, I'm going to be talking about the unconscious, which is very much a Jungian term, which is really what you are not conscious of. And that's why it's so powerful. And that's why it has so much impact on you, your voice, and your life. And so just you can sort of interchange them to some extent, but I'm going to be talking about the unconscious tonight. And this is really your beliefs, your thoughts, your feelings, your judgments, your assumptions that you've made about yourself and the world, but you're not conscious of it. So this isn't limiting beliefs. This isn't some of the things that people mention to me in emails. This is things that you are simply not aware of. And what I'm going to be talking about tonight is how you can become aware of what you're currently not aware of. So you have real power to transform your voice and to create what it is you want in the world. So this is why I shared at the start that I come from a scientific kind of background, because voice training alone will only take you so far. And having spent many years myself studying voice, I can say this from a place of real truth. Many of you mentioned in your emails to me that you had singing lessons, you've had voice lessons, and yet you still felt stuck. This is the reason. So it's not that we don't want to do voice lessons or singing lessons, but they only work at a certain level. And then there's something much deeper actually fundamentally driving your voice and your vocal habits. So if you just focus on the vocal exercises, what you'll find is you will hit a ceiling with your voice. So some of you may have already experienced that. You feel like, well, this is all my voice is capable of. This is as high as I can sing. This is as powerful as I can speak or sing. Or you'll just find you go backwards as well. You might feel like you take some steps forwards and then you go back. This is why, because we're dealing with something emotional, which is in the unconscious. And that's why this work is so powerful. So it will be revealed primarily through these pervasive vocal habits, the habits that you might even identify as who you are. So I just have a weak voice. I just can't sing those notes. I'm just terrified of public speaking. It's those sort of beliefs and habits and fears that we really buy into as who we are. That's what we want to look at. And, you know, I'm sure you're all aware you have some control over your voice. Even in your day-to-day life, like if you choose to be, you know, if you're shouting at someone, you can shout if you want to, but there are limits. It's like there's almost like an internal brake that goes on the voice. And this is what we're really talking about here. So what is fundamentally required is an identity shift. You have to step into a new version of yourself. And that's why it's so frightening, scary, terrifying. And this is why I have a lot of compassion for everyone that I work with, because it really is a fundamental shift in how you see yourself at the deepest level that has to change. Whether you want to sing those big notes, whether you want to speak more confidently, you have to fundamentally change. So as I've mentioned some of the examples already, hitting high notes is a big one. I know I work with lots of singers and they really get in their head that they can't hit those notes. That's an example. So there's like limited range. You feel like your voice is limited. This was a big one, which is what I'm going to talk about tonight, the projection, the difficulty in powering your voice and projecting your voice was a big common theme amongst many of you that emailed me. And even things like assertively expressing yourself, like confidently speaking up, maybe in times of conflict, whether it could be even with your family, with your romantic partner. Are you someone that shies away from confrontation? Or are you comfortable expressing yourself? This is all what we're talking about here. It's all emanating through the voice and it's all revealing what's really going on for you. And it could also be things like being more vulnerable, being more emotional. Maybe you're very good at asserting yourself, but maybe you struggle to actually express emotions and have those real heart-to-heart conversations with people. So tonight I'm just going to talk about this, and again, I'm simplifying a process and I'm simplifying this just to try and hopefully make it as easy as possible for you to understand. But I'm going to talk about vocal habits or vocal fears or all the things that you all emailed me about. We're going to talk about them and think about them in two groups or two categories. And the category that you primarily fall into will be dependent on your upbringing, your conditioning, your cultural conditioning, your religious conditioning, society, media, the country you grew up in. All of that is impacting your voice. What you learned was socially acceptable. What you learned was socially adaptive. So the first group, and Andrea, are you able to bring up the PDF?
Yes.
We'll see if it works. If not, then I'll do it without it. Oh, ta-da. Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, there you go.
Okay. Can you just scroll down so we can get all the, if possible, all the great. Yeah. Okay, perfect. So I don't know if you can see this, but if not, you'll be able to see it later on the recording if you watch back the replay. So we're going to look at the voice in two different groups. So a voice that's pulled back and withdrawn and a voice that's pushed out. So pulled back and pushed out. I'm going to talk about what this means. So the first one we're going to talk about is the voice withdrawn. So the vocal energy is pulled back, pulled within. It's like an internal, the voice is internalized. So this might show up, and here's some examples. This isn't a complete list, but just to give you an idea so you can start to see, am I more in the withdrawn side or am I more in the pushed out side? There's no right or wrong, by the way, neither is better or worse. So the withdrawn, you feel like your voice is powerless. So you struggle to project. These are just examples. The voice probably is quite raspy and croaky because you're pulling your voice back. It goes into the throat like this. So it ends up sitting here. So you get that voice in the throat, that raspy croakiness. So the sound is being pulled back. You might find also, because the voice is withdrawn and pulled back, that it's very breathy or weak or quiet. But this is particularly for speakers. You might find that your speaking voice is quite muffled or mumbled. People are always asking you to repeat yourself. It lacks clarity. You might also find that your voice is quite monotonous and lacks expression. And then finally, there's just, I've sort of said this already, but minimal vocal energy. So it's kind of flat. You know, we want to sort of put a firework behind you. We want to get some energy behind the voice. So these are just some examples of how a withdrawn, pulled back voice might show up. So this is one side of the coin, and we're going to talk about the other side in a minute. Andrew, do you mind just scrolling down to the next one? So how you might feel with this, because some of you mentioned some of this. So you might feel powerless when you speak, when you sing, and you might even feel like I've tried stuff, but it's not really working. So you feel a bit powerless to create change. You might feel very anxious when you speak or sing. You're afraid of what people might think of you. That's meant to say hyper vigilant. You're very hyper aware, hyper vigilant of what people think. And I've sort of said that in the next one. Overly concerned, hyper vigilant. What will people think of me? Am I going to get criticized? Am I going to get judged? Fear of rocking the boat, fear of upsetting people. If I really express what I really feel, what's going to happen? What are the consequences? And so you'll probably find you're a bit of a people pleaser. This was definitely me. This side of the fence was definitely me when I was growing up. And what happens, though, when you fall onto this side of the fence, as I discovered, is you become very passive aggressive in the sense that you suppress all this anger, and then it sort of bubbles up in different ways, and you end up feeling very frustrated and irritated by things or by people. But from a sort of creative perspective, as singers, as voice users, etc., when we're sort of suppressing that passion and that anger, that is really fuel for our creativity. That's really fuel for our most creative and expressive voice. So we're almost like putting the brakes on our voice in many, many ways. Not just that we're stuffing anger, but we're stuffing all of that passion and all of that unexpressed emotion. So that's the first side. That's the voice that's withdrawn. Again, this list isn't exhaustive. This is just to give you an idea of how this might show up. Now we're just, Andrew, sorry, do you mind just keeping scrolling down? So the other side of the coin, which I don't know whether many of you would be on this side based on the emails I got, but I'm going to share it because I think we can all dip into this at times. So this is the voice that's pushed out. This is the broadcasting voice. And I have to be honest, when I was writing this, I was thinking of Donald Trump when I wrote this. But this would be, and he's very extreme in this end, but this would be very defensive, very combative, very bullish, very aggressive, very domineering. The voice might sound quite clipped and snappy and abrupt. It might sound very strained and forced and harsh. Probably quite loud, a voice that's easily heard, that easily projects, actually. And they appear confident, very assertive, very authoritative. So not afraid to be seen, literally the opposite to what we've just seen. And then if, Andrea, you don't mind scrolling down for the last slide, thank you. And so how this might show up then is this person, again, very comfortable with confrontation. They are very happy to be heard. Often they don't listen. They want their voice to be heard, so they interrupt others. It can come across as rude. There's a need to be perceived as strong and in control. And so anything that's vaguely perceived as a weakness, like showing emotion, expressing vulnerability, would be very much hidden and suppressed. So again, these are the two sides of the coin. I think we can all access both, but we tend to live on one side of the coin more than the other as a general rule. And either way, they are both driven by fear. And we never really let anyone get too close to us. We've always got a bit of a guard up in some way, and we've always got people at a bit of arm's length to us. But from your perspective, what's really important is whichever side of the fence you're on, it's going to limit your voice. And as I say, for most people that emailed me, well, I think all of you actually that emailed me, I would say you're more on the withdrawing the voice. And so what we're actually aiming for is a balance of the two. Like, we actually want to integrate this other side, because you can see actually here that this side of the fence has a lot of the qualities, let's say, that we didn't have on the withdrawing the voice. And so we actually want to find a balance and integration of the two. And this is why it can be so challenging for people, because they don't want to be perceived as rude potentially, or maybe too powerful or too authoritative, or I don't want people to think that, I'm bossy or I'm too assertive. But when we reject this side of the fence, or whatever side of the fence that we're rejecting all of the voice qualities, all of the vocal power and the energy that goes with that. So before I continue, because I know I'm throwing quite a lot at you, if you've never heard this sort of idea about the voice before, does anyone have any questions just based on this? Because then I'm going to talk more about how you can start to work with this. So you're all like, I don't know what she's talking about. Anyone have any questions? No? Okay. So what I'm going to do now then is just take you through how you can begin to work with this in your own voice. I'm going to use the example that came up frequently, which is the fear of, the powerlessness that people talked about, the projection struggles that they had, and then some people mentioned the difficulty in singing high notes. So I would, as a singing teacher and someone that been working with singers for a long time, to really hit high notes with power and strength, there's got to be a certain amount of power in the voice. There's got to be a certain amount of energy in the voice. We need a certain amount of strength in the voice to hit those notes. So for me, it's not really a surprise that you might struggle to hit high notes if you also struggle to project your voice, because they are similar in a way. You've actually got to allow the voice out, and you've got to be heard. And that's often people's biggest fear. On some level, ironically, that there's actually a real fear of being heard. And so you do hear people that can hit high notes, but it's all very soft and it's almost very false in that sort of falsetto part of the voice. But there's no power, there's no strength, because actually powering the voice is really frightening, is really threatening, is really scary for many people. So the first thing you want to think about then, think about your voice, particularly for the people that haven't responded, that I didn't get to email. Think about your voice and think about your main concerns with your voice, whatever it is. And what side of the fence? Are you more a withdrawing the voice, or are you more of a pushing the voice out? And just focus on the side that you feel is dominating for you. So as we talked about, the powerlessness, the difficulty projecting would be on the withdrawing the voice side. The next question to ask yourself is, what did I learn about expression and sharing my voice as a child? And I'm not a psychologist in the sense of a clinical psychologist, but we do have to look at this in terms of what did I learn? So for example, if you as an adult struggle with powering your voice and projecting your voice, you might have learnt as a child that you actually got more love and attention by being quiet. That if you were a good girl and just went to your room and sat and read your book, or played the piano, or played the guitar, or whatever it is you did as a child, that your parents gave you more attention, gave you more love. Or maybe it was the opposite. Maybe you were a little terror and you got more love and attention by being really loud and noisy and making loads of noise. So it's very, very, very personal to you. And that's why I can't possibly cover every individual with this. I usually work privately with people on this. So think about your own voice and what you learned growing up. So there's no right or wrong. And I want to make this really clear. There is no judgment here. Whatever it was for you is absolutely perfect. You know, it's just where you're at and what you learned. Different countries, different cultures. And I've learned this by working with people all over the world. There's different expectations, particularly on women in different parts of the world, where in some parts of the world, I'd say in the US, they're much more outspoken generally. Other parts of the world, they tend to, you know, the voice is very little and girly and quiet. And it's almost socially unacceptable as a woman to have your voice out there. One of my clients is a Filipino woman, and that's very much part of their culture as women. And we're working on her singing voice, but it's taken her a long time to allow herself to find power in her voice, because the cultural conditioning as a Filipino woman is you have a little girly, quiet voice. So again, there's no judgment here, whatever it is for you. The next question you want to ask yourself is, and this might seem completely unrelated, but I told you at the beginning that this is what's unconsciously driving your voice, not what you're conscious of. So you might have ideas in your head, well, I speak quietly because when I was 5, I was told to shut up or whatever. It could be anything. But here we're really wanting to get beyond what you're aware of. So the way we do this, or one of the ways we do it, is we look at the people and circumstances that trigger you. So think about in your life patterns of people or experiences or situations in your life where there's a repetitive pattern of people that you find really irritating, that really get under your skin. Maybe they're really bossy, maybe they're really arrogant, maybe they're really aggressive. For me, just to give you an example, I used to get very triggered by angry people because I was suppressing my own anger. So I used to attract angry people. I used to be surrounded by angry people. My mum was a very angry woman. Like everywhere I went, there was just angry people, because what I was seeing was my own anger that I was unconscious to. So I want you to start to look at the people and events in your life. What is the theme? What kinds of people do I attract? Because what you're really seeing is a part of yourself. Again, this isn't to blame yourself, but an unmet, unseen part of yourself. And it's unconscious. So your mind might reject this and say, no, I did for years. No, I'm not angry. Why do I always attract angry people? Because it was an unconscious part of my own mind that I couldn't access. And this impacted my speaking and singing voice massively. Because when I rejected anger, I also rejected passion. I also rejected all of that energy that's behind anger. I rejected all that strength and power that's behind anger. So it's not that we have to become angry, but we just don't push it away and we don't reject it. So start to think about those people in your life. Now, you don't have to tell me. You can do this privately. No one has to know. You can journal this. What are the themes? What are the kinds of people that really irritate you? Now, it's not just people that you find irritating. It can also be people that you really admire. There might be people that you put on a pedestal, like, oh my God, I could never be like her. She's amazing. She's so pretty. She's so smart. She's got an amazing voice. Fill in the blank. I could never be that. So wherever there's a strong emotional reaction, positive or negative, is where you want to go. So with power and projection, for example, you might find that you are triggered positively or negatively around people that are very authoritative, that know their own mind, that a lot of people are triggered by Trump. For example, I'm using him because he's such a good example for the extreme. He's a very, very, very extreme example, but this is why people get triggered, because they're seeing this unmet part of themselves. So you might be triggered by people that really are very comfortable owning their own power, owning are very authoritative, very assertive, and are unashamedly so. And you might think that they're really arrogant, or who do they think they are? They're so egocentric. But it's really this unexpressed part of yourself that you're seeing. And it can be very difficult for people initially to sort of start to really accept that. But just even open your mind to the fact that the world is just a mirror and everyone is a reflection of you. But the more you're triggered by them, the more they're a reflection of you. So this is why it's so difficult, this work, and why I work with people privately normally, because we can work through this together. And then the final question to ask yourself is, so coming back to the example that we're using of the power and the projection struggles, which was the common theme, a good question to ask yourself is, what do I avoid feeling by holding on to this vocal habit? Meaning, if I struggle to project my voice and power my voice, what do I avoid feeling by my voice being powerless, by not being able to project my voice? So coming back to this whole idea of power, many of us unconsciously reject power, particularly as women, because we've been taught power is wrong. Powerful people are like Trump and Putin, and they're nasty and they're evil and they're bad. We don't want to be powerful. So it's really about reclaiming your power. But we've been conditioned to believe power is bad. And so this is why this work is so powerful, because really what this is about is you reclaiming your own personal power. So from my perspective, power is never about what we see actually in the media, which is about which is war and violence and aggression. That is not what I'm talking about here with power. I'm talking about you owning your own personal power, like really shining your own light and really standing in your own, your own power is really the best way I can put it. So did I have anything else to say about that? So a really common feeling that people avoid then with the power thing is, if I was to really own my own power, that feelings of shame come up. What will people think of me? You know, what will my family think of me? What will society think of me? Who does she think she is for singing those big notes on stage? Who does she think she is for standing on stage or speaking or expressing herself? So all of this, when we step into our power, it brings up a lot of fear for people in terms of owning, as I say, like a fear of criticism, a fear of being judged, a fear of what will people think. And ultimately, our deepest fear, all of us, is being abandoned, is being unloved. That's what we all deeply fear. So everything is always coming back to that. So these are big questions. This is very deep. I probably should have warned you at the start. This is deep work. But start to kind of go through some of these questions with the things that are arising in your voice, in the patterns that you're seeing, in the habits that you're seeing. And even for those of you that expressed anxiety around speaking, like, what's the payoff for feeling anxious about speaking in public? There is always an emotional payoff. What do you get to avoid feeling by not speaking in public, for example? And a lot of it, as I say, is about owning your own power, being seen, being visible, being heard. That is our deepest fear for so many of us, particularly women, because we've got this whole other layer of conditioning, which, as you all know, our voices have been sort of suppressed for so long, and we're starting to kind of have a voice, but that's still in our DNA. It's still driving us unconsciously. And it could also be your parents, your grandparents. You know, if they grew up during the war, that's all going to be impacting you as well on some level. So the good news, though, is this doesn't have to define you, and this doesn't have to drive you. But the first stage is the awareness, and the first stage is going towards what you fear, going towards those feelings that you've been trying to run away from maybe your whole life, the feelings of shame and being criticized and being judged, allowing yourself to go there and feel it. Because truthfully, who you really are is not your thoughts, is not your feelings. You are the witness. The truth of who you are is the witness to your feelings, to your thoughts, but you aren't your feelings and your thoughts. But we're really all taught that we are what we think. but you're not. And this is a big part of the work as well. It's really starting to separate you, to give you some space from your thoughts. This is why meditation is so powerful, because you start to really be the witness to your thoughts versus I am someone who can't sing high notes. I am someone that fears public speaking. I am someone that fears confrontation. Fill in the blank. It's then starting to see that's just my conditioning. That's just what I learned. That's just almost like a role that I've played my whole life because it's kept me safe. But it isn't who I am. It isn't the truth of who you are. It's just what you've learned is who you are. And then when we can start to create space and we start to go towards this, everything starts to open up. And what you'll find with the voice, because the voice is very emotional, it's very psychological. When you start to give more space and more ease around your voice, I promise you, you'll find that you can hit those high notes. Obviously, you need some training, but you want to put the horse before the cart. So it's really, first of all, about giving you some space to allow this voice to come through, because your true voice is powerful, is expressive, is dynamic, is clear. It doesn't matter what your accent is. It doesn't matter where you're from in the world. Your true voice is that. So if it's not that, it's because you have, like we all do, you're overly identifying with your conditioning as who you are. And that's why I said this is like personal transformation as well as vocal transformation, because you can see how this would impact every area in your life, not just your voice. But your voice becomes this powerful vehicle then. Like I said, for me, growing up, I used to really struggle to express anger. And I just suppressed my anger most of my life. And then it was really impacting my singing voice, my speaking voice. And then through this work and through this integration, I was able then to begin to express myself. And actually my voice then became more powerful, I was able to allow more passion and more creativity into my voice because I wasn't putting the brakes on. And just the final thought I want to leave you with, and then I'm open to questions, or if you're all just like, what has just happened in the last 30 minutes? I just want to leave you with the transformation that you're seeking is not an intellectual process, it's an emotional process. So if you have been through therapy, I've gone to therapy many times. Again, there's no shame in any of this. I'm very open about this. So if you're very intellectually aware of your problems, quote unquote, that is not going to create the transformation. The transformation is in the emotion, meaning you have to go towards the emotions that you've been running away from, the fear, the shame, the embarrassment, the sadness, whatever it is, from this new awareness that it isn't who I am, and you allow yourself to feel it. And in neuroscience, they say it takes about 90 seconds for an emotion to move through when we don't get attached to it. And then as it moves through, it frees us. So like the voice frees, our body frees, everything opens up. And so I promise you, the things that you've talked to me about in your emails, the voice will start to open because you're just going to show up as a different person. And coming full circle back to my original point, your identity starts to shift because you're no longer attached to the conditioned version of you, the programmed version of you. You're now stepping into the true version of you. And all of my work is about authenticity. So your authentic singing voice, your authentic speaking voice. And that means you have to get out of your own way. So this was, oh, I've done it in 30 minutes. This is my work in a nutshell. This is the deeper voice work in a nutshell. But I'm very open to questions. And if you don't want to ask me publicly, then feel free to email me as well. So any thoughts, any comments, any questions? Or have I just thrown too much at you?
No, it's definitely, I think it's definitely food for thought. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Anybody has any questions? Okay, I'll ask you a question. How long do you think it takes to kind of have that transformation happen from the moment you realize it to then stepping into that sort of danger zone and then really feeling like you can express yourself fully? Or is it completely personal?
It is very personal because it really depends on, like I had a conversation with someone last week. So this is why private coaching around this is so important in a way, because it really depends on how willing you are to step outside your comfort zone and how willing you are to face uncomfortable feelings. Because everything that we want is on the other side of a feeling we don't want to feel. And so a lot of it is that. And if we've learned that, for in my world, like anger was bad. So I didn't want to feel angry. So I would push it away for like 10 years. So it really depends. We have so many judgments around emotions, like this is bad, this is good, shouldn't feel this, shouldn't feel that. So it's really how open and ready you are, I suppose. So I haven't really answered your question. But it can be very quick if you're really open to it. But most people, including myself, it didn't happen overnight. Not that not that you're ever there, but you become more open.
Cool. Okay. No, we don't have any questions, so we can close it off.
Wow.
Thank you very much. I think like we're really thinking through.
Yes.
Because like right now, all my brain can only think like, okay, as a child, what were you scared most? I was like this is what I'm doing right now. So like I don't have questions. I'm just thinking. I'm like, I need to sit down with my emotions tonight.
No, 100%. And so I will send you all my course, and I would go through the course and maybe rewatch this. And I think the combination of the two, because there's some handouts in the course as well, so you can go through this. And then if you have any questions, you can email me. But yeah, it's a lot, particularly if you've never heard this before, it's quite a lot to take in. Because most people think that their voice is just random and I just do some voice exercises and that's it. But it's so much deeper than that.
All right.
I would agree with what was just said, actually, because it is quite deep. And sometimes we don't realize the things that do affect us. Because, everything starts from childhood, doesn't it, really?
Yeah.
You don't kind of equate your singing voice with what could have happened as a child or even as an adult. You don't really relate it to any one particular event. And like what was just said, you got to take time to sit down and reflect and think and evaluate the things that you've just been talking about. Because there is a lot of truth in what you've just said, but it's to unravel it.
Yeah, no, 100%. 100%.
Yeah, but it was very interesting indeed.
Yeah, and I do have a YouTube channel as well, so I might share that too, because I've got like nearly 400 videos on this. So a lot of the people that end up working with me have followed me on YouTube for a while, and this is what I'm talking about all the time, but in lots of different topics. And so they're already sort of getting the idea by the time they work with me. They already sort of understand a little bit about this. But if this is brand new to you, then just sit with it. Because I remember when I first learned about this, I was like, whoa. But it really will transform your life. It's not just your voice. It's really like a puppy's not just for Christmas. This is not just for your voice. This is every area of your life. And also think about just how you interact with family, how you interact with your husband, your wife, your girlfriend, whoever. Just start to notice, where do I pull my voice back? I talk to this person, my voice shuts down. I talk to this person, I feel I can be a bit more confident. Just start to notice the kinds of people where you pull your voice back, you shut your voice down. Where do you stop yourself? Because it's all pointing to the same thing eventually.
Interesting.
Thank
you.
No worries.
Thank you so much, really.
I'm just reading something. Sorry, no worries at all. And hold on, let me just see. Thank you for your comments. Yeah, so as I say, I will actually because Andrea, will you send me the list of everyone that was on the call tonight? Their emails, I mean.
I'm sorry. Yeah,
Oh.
I can do that. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I could do that. Do you want to put your email just in the chat?
Yeah.
Just to make sure everybody has your contact.
Yeah.
If they have any more questions.
Yeah. So go away and, oh God, how do I do this? Oh, here. So there's my emails. Some of you already have it because you'd already emailed me. So, but if you don't have it, feel free to email me when you've digested this. Yeah, anyone else have any last comments or thoughts or questions or anything else?
Well, I think that, you know, the voice in music, the voice is classed as an instrument, but it's like not like a guitar or a piano or something that's separate from you. It's actually inside you, and it's grown up with you since you were a baby. So you know, all the points that you made about all this, the subconscious and the unconscious conditioning, all of that must affect your voice.
100%.
Yeah.
And
so
I think,
just wanted to thank you as well that you managed to cover all that.
Well, and also you raised a point, because you didn't mind me sharing, I think you said in your email to me, which I really resonated with. You said something about, you know, not wanting to look stupid when you go to speak or you sing. And I do think, because I was thinking, because obviously Carol's a voice coach as well, I think sometimes, particularly when we are a voice coach or whatever it is we do, we probably feel this extra pressure that we've got to be perfect, because we probably feel more judged. So I guess that also might be feeding into it for you, that there's a pressure. For, yeah, I get that.
Amazing. We're going to close it off. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was amazing. Thank you so much. A lot of food for thoughts, I think, on every level for everybody.
Yeah. It's a nice, easy, nice little...
Good way to start your week.
Yeah.
Definitely.
But no, I will send you all the course, and I'll send you a link to my YouTube channel if you want to check that out as well. And and then email me if you have any questions.
Amazing. Thank you so much. See you soon. Bye.